Hello and welcome to Game and Chat Lite, where we cover news and updates from the world of Nintendo. I am your host Mike, and joining me today is best friend of the Game and Chat podcast. It is Pete Beckett of Rapid Reviews Radio Podcast.
Hello, I am Mr. Worldwide today because I'm currently sitting in Mexico.
Ooh, buenos dias to you, Pete.
¿Cómo estás, amigo?
Cansado, muy cansado. No, I'm all right. I'm all right actually. So, obviously, Pete, why not tell people why you're currently in Mexico?
I'm enjoying a holiday and my honeymoon. So, got married 6 months ago. So, just enjoying some time with the wife. And thought I would look. I can't keep away from podcasting. I never can. It's terrible, I know.
I mean, it's like supposed to be 2 weeks of utter bliss, and here you are talking to me. I'm sorry, bud.
It was my idea.
Well, it is your idea. It was your idea. Obviously, you got that itch, and it's like, I need to do an episode. But okay, all right. Here I am.
Yeah,
Obviously, Kylie wasn't available, so you came running to me.
like, the thing is that there's been so much going on, especially with what we're going to talk about today. But obviously, like all the GTA stuff, the Xbox stuff. I chose the wrong time to go on holiday.
You did. And I'm glad that you brought that up, actually, because I think the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to start talking numbers and pricing. Because obviously, when you went away, obviously, it was announced that like Xbox were putting their prices up, like PlayStation were putting their prices up, and all because Nintendo put their prices up, and everybody thought, hey, if Nintendo can do it, we can too. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I will. So obviously, some of your listeners, viewers might not actually listen to the Rapid Reviews Radio podcast because we did cover this when Sony put the price on for the PS5 and the PS1. So I'll reiterate the point that I made for that in comparison to obviously the Xbox stuff. It's an utter joke. 5 years into the console life cycle, you would usually have a price drop because parts get cheaper, it's become easier to manufacture. You wouldn't have a price increase. So I just think this is companies just absolutely taking the mickey and going, well, these were limited supply to start with. Our numbers might not be as good as what we'd hoped for when we're 4.5 to 5 years down the line with a release, and changing economic climate has given them the excuse to say, let's increase the price. Nintendo also haven't helped with the matter as well, but I just think this is just pure corporate greed at the sole base of it. I don't think this has anything to do with President Trump's tariffs, anything like that. I just think it is a company can get away with it, so they will get away with it. And if people buy it at these increased prices, they're just going to keep doing it.
Well, yeah, because if they're not being held accounted for, then they're just going to constantly get away with it until somebody says, hang on a second, stop. This is anti-consumer at its absolute worst. It's all well and good, okay, with some games being a little bit more costly than others because of, like development that went into it, the amount of content that are into it, and, all that kind of thing. They can throw out every single little, trick in the book to justify why a game is going to cost so much. But at the end of the day, it can't just be because, well, Nintendo did it, so, so are we.
Agreed, but the fact is that we're not the ones that are there pushing on the side of this is what we want in the games. We don't. Not the vast majority of gamers don't want increased graphics. Don't want 4K resolution and stuff like that. Like, we've seen a bit of a diminishing returns when it comes to what visual fidelity is like since the PS4 and Xbox One days. What we want is stability and fun, and it's always been the case when it comes to video games. Take GoldenEye 64 for example. The game is fun as hell, but ran like an absolute turd on the N64. But people still played it and had fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've played it many a times. I've even played it with a couple of. But like, again, you just like you mentioned GoldenEye. Now you said it runs like an absolute turd, and yeah, you're right. And how they ever managed to get it was a very very ambitious game to start with on the
Yeah.
hardware. Um,
Hmm.
but it's a game that people are constantly talking about and still having fun with today. And
Yeah.
you've
The
got all
other,
your big high games like Ghost of Tsushima, um, and like is it
uh,
Legend of Wukong? I think it is. Like all these games that look really, really, really good,
Black
really,
Myth,
really
Black Myth
stunning
Wukong.
games. Black Myth Wukong, that's the one. And it's
Yeah.
like they look
Well,
really,
I
really
would.
good. And I mean, granted, some of the games that play well as well, but sometimes there are other games that look really, really, really good. But then when it comes to gameplay, it's like okay, you got 5 minutes of doing like quick button prompts, and then you got another hour
Yeah.
cutscene.
Yeah. So I would go on a limb and say it's been a bit of a revelation, and people are rightly talking about it recently. Is a game that can look really, really decent. Yes, it has a few issues. The team of there's freelancers in there, but a team of 30 people made the game. It's fun as hell to play. It looks impressive, and it's got a great story. Claire Obscure Expedition 33. It's a beautiful looking game, and it plays really well, and it's rightly so, getting all the accolades that it is.
And rightly so, and rightly so. So
Mm.
obviously, I mean, games, the prices are constantly increasing. It didn't help with obviously, we're still talking about it even now. I mean, the direct itself was, last month, for like Mario Kart Direct and the Mario Kart World Direct rather, and also its pricing of like $90, £80, and it's like that's a big jump up from like 50, £60, euros to up to 90, and you really really got hope that it's justified. And one point that I did, that was made on a previous episode of our podcast with Nintendo Mouse, aka Richard Atkinson, and it's like we hope that it is the full game. We hope it is the full game there, and it's not like a couple months down the line, it's like, oh, here's a season pass for it now. Here's another 30, euros or pounds that you got to drop on the game, and it's like it just cost me 90. Now I'm going to pay another 30 on top of that. Hopefully, that is not the case.
I hope not, but obviously, when it came to Mario Kart 8, we'd already paid £50 for the Wii U version, and £40 for the deluxe version, and then 17.50 for the booster pack. If you obviously wasn't on the Switch Online expansion pass. So once you total all that up, it's over £100 anyway. If you played it on the Wii U, of course, which only 13 million people did at most.
Well, speaking of 13 million and speaking of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, obviously we have got the new numbers in as of March 31st, 2025, because obviously Nintendo have updated their sales and things. And it is a huge, huge difference between the 13 million that were on the Wii U, or rather 8.46 million units that were sold on the Wii U, as opposed to on
Yeah,
Nintendo Switch, where it said sold 68.2 million units.
yeah. So
That
that's
is
now
one.
that's over 70 million units of 8, including the Wii U
Yeah,
version.
yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. And
Yeah,
if
that's
you
why they're
like take into account that how much each game is, if you say like £50 to make it easy, so like
yeah.
68 times 50, I think you're looking at that's 350 million. I think that sound about
I
right.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Then
I think
take
so. Yeah, 350 million.
then take roughly about 30% off for physical editions and cost for retailers.
Yes. Yes, I mean that you're still looking at a very, very pretty penny there.
Yeah,
And
it's a
if
lot of
they're going to
money.
charge, it is hell of a lot of money. So, on the subject of sales units for the Nintendo Switch, like I said, like they've updated. So obviously, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is sitting pretty at 68.2 million units. Then we have Animal Crossing New Horizons at 47.82. Smash Bros. Ultimate or Super Smash Bros. Ultimate 36.24. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 32.81. And I'll take a pause here so we can go over any of these games. I mean, that's a lot of a lot of units sold.
I'm pleasantly surprised that Smash Bros. Ultimate sold 36 million units.
Yeah. I mean, if we take into account like the Wii U version, I don't even think it only did. It sold 5.38 million. So
Yeah, but
5.38 million Wii U
you can't.
as
The
opposed to
thing is, you can't take into account the Wii U version because it was a completely separate game.
yeah.
So Ultimate is, yeah, okay, they probably reuse some assets here and there, but actually Ultimate is a very different game by comparison in terms of its mechanics and roster size and everything and such. And the way it was marketed was completely different to how the Wii
I'm
U
not
version
going
was.
to compare it as like the same game on different platforms. Obviously, they both have
Oh, right.
very, very different play styles and stuff. I mean, like in reference to how well that game sold on that console, and like on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Wii, for
got you.
example, Super Smash Bros. Wii sold 13.32. But then again, the Wii did sell a lot of consoles. What it was about 100 something thousand, I think.
100
I'll
odd
be able to tell
million
you in a
units
second.
for the Wii, but also
101, yeah.
Brawl. Yeah, Smash
Mm.
Bros. Brawl was not considered the best game and actually had diminishing returns by comparison to Melee, especially with the competitive scene. Yeah, it would have sold a lot more copies than Melee did, but it was not seen as it's basically seen as the I can't really say what the term is when talking about the Smash Brothers community, but uh, the child, let's call it.
Yes, I suppose it is. And I suppose, I mean, those that did enjoy it, I mean, I quite enjoyed it, but mainly for the single player experience for it, the Subspace
Mm,
Missionary.
yeah,
Subspace, yeah.
Subspace
No, not
emissary
missionary.
rather than
Emissary, yes.
subspace
Yeah, not
mission.
missionary. That's
No,
a bit provocative.
you need to call this episode the subspace missionary now.
Subspace Missionary. Subspace Missionary. You heard it here first. I do. Oh dear. So, right. So, then, yeah, let's move on with some other games then. Moving on. We'll just brush that under the carpet. Then we got
Yeah,
Super Mario Odyssey at 29.28. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, 26.79.
yeah. Just to talk about
Yeah, sorry.
Mario Odyssey, it's now become the most sold 3D Mario game of all time.
That is saying something. I mean, it is an absolute superb game. And if I could forget ever playing it and then play it again.
Yeah,
Because it's
I
one of
wish
those
I could
games like,
forget playing it 3 times over so that I could play it again fresh.
because once I mean, obviously after you've beaten it, you'd have to, just completely wipe everything and then start over again. Because like if you keep everything where it is, like the moons, it's like there's little else to actually do afterwards, unless you do the balloon game with Luigi's
Yeah,
balloon, whatever it's called. Which is fine and fair enough, but then some people can be really, really, really mean, or should I say, very, very creative when it comes to hiding them darn balloons and then trying to find them.
mean. We're going with mean.
We're going with mean. We're going with mean. So moving on. we have Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, which is at 26.79. Then Pokemon Sword and Shield at 26.72. So on the heels of Scarlet and Violet, not much of a difference between them, but that's not too bad. But then it just
So
goes to show that Pokemon fans will buy anything,
I was,
myself included.
I was literally
Myself
just about to say
included.
that as well. I was like, Pokemon fans will buy any slop that's given to them. Like, I don't mind Pokemon, but my God, they're not the greatest games, are they?
No, no. I mean, there's so much potential there, and a couple of new Pokemon. You think, okay, that's pretty cool, but then the frame rate and the performance really, really let down Scarlet and Violet.
And the
I'm
fact that it still
afraid.
looks like a GameCube game, at best.
Yes. Yeah. Mind you, funnily enough, right? Life imitated art because obviously the Paldea region is, inspired by Spain. And
Yeah.
last week, as of recording this episode, Spain had a nationwide blackout. And where I lived,
Mm-hmm.
you could see the like the windmills, the aeolic turbines, the wind turbines, and they weren't
Yep.
moving. Much like they don't move in Scarlet and Violet, unless you get up close, and then they start moving because of the frames.
Oh,
But
I
yeah,
see where you're going with that. That's
and
pretty
because I was at
funny.
quite a distance, it's like, oh, they're moving at 1 frame per second. Maybe I was wrong about Scarlet and Violet. Dear.
Yeah, real world draw
Oh dear.
distance is not as good as Pokemon game, is what we're saying.
No, absolutely not, absolutely not. Maybe I need to get my eyes checked or something. So then we have The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. That sold 21.73. So that's actually a fair drop down from Breath of the Wild. Although a lot of people would say
Yep.
that Tears of the Kingdom was a better game, a more enjoyable game.
I
Super
would
Mario Party
disagree.
is at
I'm not one of those people.
21.16. You're not one of those people. Not one of those
No.
people. No. I've got a friend of mine who likes the Zelda games, but he couldn't get on with either of them.
Fair. Totally fair.
Didn't
Not
like Breath
everyone
of
likes the
the
open
Wild.
world aspect.
No. I mean, I quite enjoyed it. I mean, it was certainly a different experience. And I had a lot of fun playing the games, but then I am a huge Zelda fan, and I'm like Pokemon fans. Pokemon fans will buy Pokemon games no matter what. I'm a Zelda fan through and through, and I will buy Zelda games no matter what. It's just a good thing that I can't get my hands on Tingle's Rupee Land or whatever it's called, because I'll probably pick that up too, because I'm a sucker for things like that.
Yeah. You strike me as the sort of person who bought Link's crossbow training about 4 times over.
Not 4 times over, but I did buy it twice. Because obviously,
My
when we
point
got it first
exactly.
time around, I was still living at home with my brother and sister. Then when I moved away, I moved out. Then I picked up the game a little bit later just to add to my collection. But it's not one that I overly play much. But I did enjoy it. I did quite enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything bad about that game. It's fun, but yeah, it wasn't justified in the price that you paid for it.
No, and they basically just wanted to make something for the Wii Zapper, didn't they?
Yep.
Pretty much. And then as we finish off, like Super Mario Party at 21.16 and New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 18.25. So they are obviously the top 10 games or so on the million sellers list. You bear with me, I should be able to find details about Donkey Kong Country because they were released. But as I do that, obviously, let's talk about the big thing. The Nintendo Switch itself is now at 152.12 million units. So still snapping on the heels of the PlayStation 2 until they imagine all of a sudden get another 5 million units out from God knows where. And say, oh no, it's 165
I'm
million
not.
units now. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure that someone can conjure up an extra 5 million anywhere. I'm surprised that they did the first 5 million when they did to make it 160. But I mean, we'll probably take into account that since the PlayStation 3, they probably stopped looking at sales figures for the PlayStation 2,
Yeah.
and the PlayStation 2 was available in Brazil probably until about 2014. So, and was actively on sale. So that's probably where some of those units have come from. But
That's
yeah,
understandable.
Switch.
That's fair
So
enough. But it was like there was one year, like when the Switch was at 140 something, and it's like, oh no, the PlayStation has sold 155 million. It's like, okay, then, right, fine, fair enough. I can understand that. They haven't been counting the units up before since it was like discontinued, and then it's like all of a sudden another 5 million a year after, and it's like, okay, so the PS2, which has been out of retail for the last 10 years, has all of a
yep,
sudden sold another 5 million units. So what, was there a warehouse and somebody just happened to buy the warehouse which had another 5
that's
million
possible.
PS2s in there?
I mean, it can happen. They would look at
Yeah,
that as a marketing, like as a cost, and say, look, we have sold an extra 5 million. It could have been 5 million that they produced many years ago. They forgot about
yeah.
that warehouse. They thought, let's write this cost off, and they're going, oh yeah, there's an extra 5 million. So there we go. We've sold another 5 million. Maybe
So
possible,
what
but
do you
I'm not
think
sure I believe
about these? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Belief. I mean, it is possible, I mean, there's plenty of room for doubt as well. And it's like, okay, so why now? Of you know, after years of like nothing, it's like, well, I suppose because they don't want to get knocked off the podium. Perhaps. I mean, it's
it.
quite a thing to be like the top selling console of all time.
Mhm.
But what are your thoughts on Nintendo Switch, being able to, for example, surpass the PS2? Now with like the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out, obviously next month now on June 5th, do you think the Nintendo Switch will still be able to sell numbers alongside the Switch 2, or do you think it's just going to dwindle off?
I don't think it's going to dwindle off because I don't think everyone is going to adopt the Switch 2 to start with. It's only going to be mostly the hardcore players like us or the Nintendo fans, let's say, that are going to go and gravitate towards it immediately. There will be those that are big Mario Kart fans that will gravitate towards it because it's the first new one in millions of years. So they will go and pick it up. And if it's based on what I saw, they're estimating about 15 million units sales for the Switch 2 to like first fiscal year on the market. So that would mean that they're probably going to estimate that quite a few people are still going to buy Switch Ones, and they've said that they're not going to discontinue the Switch One probably for another couple of years after the Switch 2 launches. So they're still very confident that it will produce, they will still be producing some sort of numbers. And I think that they'd be silly to discontinue it almost immediately after the Switch 2 launches, because I think that they've got a real shot of taking over PlayStation 2 sales to be the top seller.
I mean, one of the things that they are pushing with the Nintendo Switch 2 is Game Share. Now, Game Share, basically, if you have a Nintendo Switch 2 in your household, which would have the game on it, you will be able to share or stream rather that game onto other Nintendo Switch systems, and that does include the Nintendo Switch 1. So obviously it depends on compatible titles, so like 51 Worldwide Classics or Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, like those kind of games. And I think even Split Fiction has also been mentioned as well.
I didn't see Split Fiction mentioned, but if they have done that, that's great because that goes into the whole EA's play anywhere sort of mentality where they want people to pick up a copy of the game for other people to play it as a secondary. So, for example, I picked it up on Steam, and because of that, Kylie, when we were playing it, only had to download the client just so that she could jump in and play it with no extra cost. So that would be perfect for making sure that people actually do get their eyes on the game. So If you buy it on the Switch 2 and then stream it to another console in the family via the Switch 1, and they can still play it, that's a net benefit to all parties involved.
Well, yeah. So hopefully, I mean, it's going to give families the ability to, play certain games across multiple systems and not having to purchase multiple copies of the same game. And I suppose another possibility is that, like, for those who own a Nintendo Switch and are going to upgrade to the Switch 2, are probably going to still keep their Switch around, because if they have got people around to play or whatnot, they can, one can be using the Nintendo Switch 2 and then, like, streaming the games onto the other people's, like, switches. So, like, families, for example, like, if you've got a young, well, maybe not a young child, but, like, you got children, and perhaps, you got a couple of, like, Switch Lite systems, and it's like, okay, well, you got the Switch, so, you can pass it down, kind of thing, pass it down the family. So, like, the eldest will be able to play with, Daddy's Switch, who he could never play with that console before, but now, because Daddy's got a Switch 2, he can play with the Switch 1 now, perhaps.
Yeah, agreed. So I'm interested to see how it'll work with a game like Mario Party Jamboree. It's obviously, a very big seller on the Switch 1 as per the sales numbers that we receive. We've got the upgraded version coming to Switch 2. Is it going to be possible that we can play Jamboree via the Switch 2, streamed to the Switch 1 with some of the new content available? Or is it just solely that content only available for Switch 2 and you can only play it on that console? It will be interesting to see whether Nintendo decides to go in that option.
That is a very good question. Very good question. I mean, there is the possibility that it can play some of the new content. Obviously, not all of it, because obviously some of the mini games that may use mouse controls and stuff like that, obviously you wouldn't be able to play with the Switch 1. However, you've played, Super Mario Party Jamboree with me and, with others as well. And there is the option to, like, turn off motion control games if you don't want to play the motion control games, and you can just play with buttons. So I can see that being a possibility of having the ability, to be able to still play, like, the new game modes. But, mind you, if you're in the thing is if you're in the same house, you'll probably be playing on the same screen anyway. So you'll probably only be playing with one console. But if you was to play online, perhaps with the Switch 1, I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Does need
it is,
thinking on, I think.
Yeah, but knowing what Nintendo are like, and let's be honest, I know this is a Nintendo-centric podcast, but we're going to be honest here and probably say they're not going to allow it. They're going to want people to do that upgrade, aren't they?
Of course they are. I mean, it's supposed to be a fairly big update. I mean, obviously, it's a content update. It's actually adding, like, game modes and things to it. So, they obviously, want to earn some money. But then saying that, like with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and the Booster Course Pass, I mean, as long as you had the Nintendo Switch Online subscription plus expansion pack, you could get that for free, as long as you still keep paying the subscription. So, I mean, if they went that way with it, but they're not going to, because they haven't mentioned it at all, and it's like, no, we really want you to pay for this one.
Yeah, the other one that's going to be interesting to me is that obviously the Switch 2 expansion, or the Switch 2 version of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, are going to be available via the expansion pass as well. Does that mean that some of the features that we've got coming for the Switch 2 version is also going to be available for the Switch 1 version?
That's a good question. I mean, I can't see why it shouldn't, to be fair. I mean, like, with the app. So, like, with the Nintendo Switch Online app, which will have the Zelda notes and things like that. I can't see why they couldn't have that in the Switch 1 and Switch 2 version. I mean, obviously, the Switch 2 edition will be able to have a visual upgrade and all that.
Yeah.
But I can't see why they can't have, oh, you've got Coroxy's missing here, and the Zelda notes where she has story, like added story beats and stuff like that to it. I don't know. I mean, they should do, but you just never know with
I hope
Nintendo, do
so.
you?
That's the unfortunate side of Nintendo, is you can never tell anything that they're going to do. And actually, like, we'll swing this back around. Obviously, Xbox and PlayStation. I'd say that Nintendo are probably one of the more egregious companies for doing this kind of thing, which is disappointing, obviously, because I'm a Nintendo fan. But
Yeah.
I can't let them off the hook for some of the stuff that they do. It's a bit ridiculous.
Anyway, I think that will do us for this episode. So thank you everybody at home for watching and listening. And Pete, thank you very much for joining me for this episode. If any of our friends and followers and supporters and listeners at home would like to follow you and check out some of your content, where can they find you?
You can usually find us every Sunday night on twitch.tv/rapid reviews, where we do the live podcast recording, which is usually then uploaded every Monday onto YouTube and Spotify with video versions, and all the other podcast players as an audio version at the same time. But obviously, I'm currently on holiday, so it's on hiatus for a couple of weeks whilst I take some rest and recuperation time and spend some time with the wife. But yeah, other than that, you can find us on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Just search our Radio Pod or Blue Sky Rapid Radio Podcast.
Brilliant. And just because there are no new episodes for the next couple of weeks doesn't mean you shouldn't check out the absolutely wonderful backlog of episodes that are already available on YouTube and Twitch as well. So definitely check out the Rapid Reviews radio podcast over on Twitch and YouTube. And with that in mind, it's time for us to love you and leave you all. So until next time, everyone, keep on gaming.